If I asked you, what is the most disturbing anime you've ever seen, what would you say? Some may say Made in Abyss or Perfect Blue. Some of you who may know some more underground anime might say Blood Sea or Elfen Lied, but all of these anime listed have already been covered countless times on YouTube, and I'm sure many of you are looking for something deeper and truly creepy, and trust me, you were in the right place. A while back, I made a video where I had to venture into the depths of my anime list, and while scrolling for hours, I came across dozens of weird, cursed, and disturbing shows deep within this website, and that led me to finding 3 disturbing anime 99.99% of you have not seen. Of these 3 anime, one has just under 200 reviews, another has 10 reviews, and my personal favorite has only 1 other review ever written for it. Horror and disturbingness is not usually something anime does well, but all 3 of these anime really made me feel this deep, uneasy, disturbing feeling deep inside. 2 of the 3 anime I'm sharing today are movies, and the other one is only 12 episodes. And while none of these are widely known or talked about, that doesn't discredit them from being very interesting stories that need more light shone on them. And let me just say, if you tweak out over bugs, body horror, psychological trauma, ultraviolence, or life after death, then click off this video now because it's going to get pretty disturbing. But now I'm going to go ahead and throw you into the first anime, which is The King's Game. The King's Game is the most popular of the 3 anime I'll be discussing today, which isn't really saying much since the other ones literally have less than 10 reviews. Also, I was only able to find 2 other video reviews on this anime on YouTube, one of which being about the live action movie that was based on this story. So even if by some slight chance you've heard of this anime, I would still bet my entire YouTube channel you still haven't heard about the other 2 anime. But anyways, The King's Game was released in 2017 by Studio 7, which I'm sure you've never heard of. This studio has made 25 TV anime, and their most popular anime is titled I Can't Understand What My Husband Is Saying, which is an anime about this otaku guy who marries this really pretty blonde girl, and each episode is only 3 minutes long. Wow, what a freaking amazing studio. They be pumping out all these masterpieces, like My Wife is a School Council President, and a whole lot of freaky adult anime, if you catch my drift. But in my opinion, King's Game is their greatest work, which isn't really saying much. But just give it a chance. This anime follows a boy named Nobuaki who just transferred to his new school. Everyone in his class is low-key so friendly and welcoming to him right off the bat. But this dude isn't having any of it, and he just straight up ignores them. The girl who tries the hardest to be friendly with Nobu is Natsuko. She tries to ask him about his past, what school he came from, and where he moved from. But Nobu just keeps to himself and is very reserved. Then, out of nowhere, he just starts bawling, crying all in the middle of class. Everyone goes up to see what's wrong because a freaking grown dude is crying in class. But Nobu just explodes on them and runs away in the wimpiest way possible.
Oh, hang on! Where the heck are you going?
Later, after chatting it up a good bit, Natsuko convinces Nobu to run in this race thing in their class for this festival. And thankfully, due to Nobu and Natsuko's speed, they win. Nobu realizes he's actually starting to have fun and enjoy his life again. But that night, everything changes. At exactly midnight, right after the Day of Peace, everyone gets a text saying that they are part of the King's Game, which is a game where everyone has to follow the King's orders no matter what. And if not, you'll be punished by death. This is then followed by the first order from the king, which is Kanazawa Nobuaki and Honda Natsuko are to kiss each other. Which doesn't seem too bad, but that's just how the game goes. It starts out all innocent, just little shenanigans, before quickly turning into an absolute nightmare. Another big rule of this game is that whatever orders you receive, they must be carried out within 24 hours, and if not, you'll be punished by death. There's a lot of punishments here. At school the next morning, no one believes that the game is real, and they all think Nobu, the wimpy outcast, sent the messages so he could kiss Natsuko. Nobu tries to tell everyone that the game is very real, and if they don't do what the king says, they are all dead, but the class just laughs it off. Turns out, Nobu has played this game before at his old school, and this is why he was hesitant to talk about his past to his new class. Nobu then has a flashback to his old school where no one believed in the game either until some of the classmates started dying. But this time, Nobu wants it to be different. He wants to try to save as many lives as possible the second round of the game, and decides he will not obey the first order and sacrifice himself so the game will hopefully end his death. Fast forward to when it's right about midnight, Natsuko appears and begs Nobu to date her. Nobu doesn't want another girlfriend because his last one died, and Natsuko wants to be his replacement girl so bad. She then sneak attack kisses Nobu, which locks him into the game, and this is just the first of many things this character does that will absolutely piss you off in this anime. Right after the kiss, the second order goes out. Masatoshi will lick Aimi's foot. I wish I was making that junk up, that is the actual order from the king. Then some other orders go out as well to other students, one of which being if you go to sleep you die. So right off the bat, like 2 people die due to falling asleep, which is so freaking unfair because it's actually midnight. Nobu then calls everyone in class and tells them to meet so they can talk through everything. Even after some of the class's deaths, they still think it's some prank by Nobu until he drops the truth about his past. He played the King's game before and was the only survivor, and now that the game is happening again, they all realize he must have killed people to win, and they all start beating him up, the main one being Yuichi. Then everyone gets a text saying Yuichi disobeyed the king's orders, and I'm still not really sure what he did, maybe trying to kill Nobu was against the rules or something, but Yuichi is now punished by bleeding to death. And his death is pretty intense and disgusting for the first episode. All these bloody spots pop up on his body before he explodes into a bloody pool on the ground. And that's the end of episode 1. The start of this show is really a roller coaster. It goes from a happy slice of life to death, blood, and licking feet. The following episode, Natsuko receives her next order that she must follow, and that is smashing this random guy in her class. So already, this anime is taking it pretty far. Nobu tells her that she has to do it because it's better than dying, and the boy grabs her and says it has to happen. Natsuko is screaming, and everyone is just watching in horror as she's about to get assaulted. It's pretty dark. Natsuko then has a crazy switch up out of nowhere. She was hoping Nobu actually had a way to get out of the king's game, but he had nothing. So now she loses all morality, and her sole focus for the rest of the anime is to win the game. This is a common theme with Nobu throughout the entire show. He just gives false hope to all his classmates, telling them it will be alright in the end, but really, there's no stopping this demonic game. Nobu does do some investigation to try to stop the game, but never really puts his full focus towards it, and even still promises that he can save everyone. Natsuko promises to herself that she'll survive this game, killing anyone who gets in her way, and this begins her villain arc as one of the main antagonists of the anime. And let me just say, the switch up is low-key pretty funny because how fast it plays out. This was her 5 minutes ago.
Nobu, please! I won't ask you to be my boyfriend again, but sleep with me before he does!
And this is her now.
Could you be more annoying?
Why are you...
If you don't get out of my sight, I'll murder you myself! I hate you!
Natsuko then tries to turn the whole class against Nobu since she believes the game is his fault since he won before and the curse of the game has followed Nobu to the school. Just when Nobu is about to die, the goat Kenta shows up, and he's like the level-headed dad of the class. He says this game can't be Nobu's fault and calms everyone down. He then takes Nobu to the hospital and assures Nobu that this game isn't his fault, but it's the king who's unforgivable. Nobu then drops the details on what he knows about the king's game. So this is a curse that started about 40 years ago in a small village. One day, one of the villagers received a piece of paper with an order on it. And after he followed the order, more people began to receive orders until ultimately the peaceful village fell into ruin, with neighbors killing each other and only one coming out alive in the end. So because the game started in this small village, Nobu convinces himself that the answer to stop the game will happen to be there. This isn't a dumb idea, but he just banks way too hard on this and swears up and down that the game will be stopped once they make it to this village. So instead of going to the hospital, Nobu convinces Kenta and Mizuki, this other girl that followed them, to head to the village and figure out clues on what happened at the first game. After this, we see a glimpse into Nobu's past and what really happened during his first King's game. And a quick side note, one of the things I don't like about this anime is how randomly the narrative switches from past to future. I still didn't really know all of the characters since it's only episode 2, and I often got confused while watching because I couldn't remember if a character was from the first or second King's game. Anyways, it seems Nobu's first King's game started about the same way. Everyone was in disbelief and no one believed it until one of their friends hung themselves as their punishment. Later, the king orders a popularity contest with the punishment for whoever has the least amount of votes. The girl who loses is in absolute disbelief and frickin' jumps out the window, and everyone looks out to see her body on the sidewalk. The class watches in horror as one by one, everyone they love dies a horrible death. One girl goes blind, one person is exploded, another is decapitated, and about a dozen people in the class die from crying, which is another stupid rule of this game. But one thing that hit me while watching this is that no one from the outside world seems to notice all these killings. Never once in the show does anyone call the police or ask anyone for help, nor does a teacher try to figure out what's going on with all these students dying. Near the end of the first King's game Nobu played, one of the worst orders is given. Someone has to roll a dice, and depending on what number it lands on, that will decide how many people die. Of course, the dude who rolls gets a 6 of all numbers, and now he must pick 6 people who will die by saying their name. The deaths of these characters in this scene in particular are brutal, such as this boy whose head twists all around, this girl who starts coughing and shooting blood everywhere, and then there's the death of the boy who rolled the dice, which is probably the most cursed, with him having his limbs shoot off one by one. Even though this anime is so gory and creepy, it still finds a way to be so freaking cringe at the same time. For example, take a look at this.
Destroy the king. You have to. I know you can. I believe in you. No, Naoya! Talk to me! Naoya! Hey, Nobuaki. Let me ask you something. What do you think heaven's like?
I don't know, man. It just feels so cliche and basic, like a little zombie movie or something. I don't know. I just heard it a million times and it just isn't really hit. Anyways, down to the last 3 people of the first game, this mysterious girl finally speaks up and shares what she knows about the game. Apparently the game is a virus and not a person, so it can't be stopped, and there can only be one winner. Don't worry if you're confused about this virus thing and how it's able to kill people remotely, because the anime doesn't explain it any further. Then that girl who exposed the secret of the game burst into flames, and it's just Nobu and his girlfriend left. Nobu then gets one final order: kill the person you love most. And before he can even think, his girlfriend stabs herself because she wants Nobu to live. In disbelief and holding an overwhelming amount of grief, he has won the king's game. The king congratulates him, and instead of setting him free, he is asked if he wants to continue playing or die. Man, what a generous guy. The king is giving out all these options. Nobu, like an idiot, decides to keep on living for his girlfriend's sake and moves to a small village at a new school, which is where the current events are taking place. The second half of the anime is similar to the first, with people dying in horrible ways. Over and over, Nobu is trying to give everyone hope, saying it'll be alright and all this stuff. No, it won't, bro. Dude, you literally played it before. Do you not remember? Stupid! He knows deep down the game can't be stopped, but despite this, he lies in the face of his dying classmates constantly. Another weird side part of this anime is that like 30% of it is a romance. Because it'll be death, 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 and then, oh, I love you, let's survive this game together and run off or something. For example, Mizuki and Kenta go on a side quest in the village where the King's game first started, and while they're off alone, they start kissing. They both express their love towards each other, and Mizuki explains what she wants for the two of them.
You have to remember, if I die, then you die too. We'll go together hand in hand.
No, hold on.
I can't think of anything more romantic. Right? It's just so perfect.
Guess what though, she gets her wish. They both end up dying together, but they aren't even able to hold hands one last time. Bruh, I swear to you, this anime be pissing me off so much. There's not 1 ounce of happiness to be found in this story. No matter how hard you look, it always ends in tragedy. And finally, I want to share one last disturbing part before the finale of the anime. So this girl named Riona gets an order from the king to destroy what means the most to her. So she trashes her entire house, breaks everything she owns. She even resorts to killing both her parents, and it is still not enough. Ultimately, Riona has to kill her own dog to complete this order, and she grabs it by the neck while tears are falling down her face. Yeah, it's some pretty wild stuff. If I were her, I just would have given up and sacrificed myself, because there's no way you could ever go back to a normal life, even if you win the game. Your parents are dead, your house is trashed, your dog's dead, you're a murderer. There's no coming back from that. And now finally, we're down to the last episode of this anime, and there are only 5 people left in the game. I don't know, I could go on and on. There's so many horrible and disturbing moments in this show, but the ending is definitely the craziest. So with 5 people left, they have one final command: make a human doll from each other's body parts. Surprisingly, there happens to be this random chainsaw lying around, and this one boy just goes straight for it and cuts off his leg because he wants to help everyone since they've all helped him so much. He dies from blood loss, and Natsuko takes the chainsaw. Then this other girl tries to take the chainsaw from Natsuko because she's crazy, but she dies too. Nobu, and then Natsuko chokes out Nobu, but Riona, who's in love with Nobu now, cuts Natsuko with the chainsaw, and now it's just Nobu and Riona. In their final moments together, they confess their love and say they want to spend their last moments together. And then, just like everything else in this anime, something horrible happens. Natsuko, who isn't fully dead, gets back up with the chainsaw and slices Nobu in the throat. Natsuko dies holding Nobu because she wanted to be the one to end up with him. This guy is basically living in a harem, but all the girls are fighting to die with him. Oh yeah, and this Riona girl, she has to die all alone now, because if she keeps on playing the game, it will go on for eternity, which Nobu knew already, but he still decided to continue the game. So honestly, if you think about it, all the deaths in the second game are on his hands. If he just sacrificed himself and ended the game there, nothing bad would have ever happened again. But no, he had to try to stop the game and failed miserably at doing so. In the end, Riona is lying next to Nobu's dead body on this random beach, begging for him to wake up and kiss her. And then the credits roll with the text "Be continued." Bruh, be so for real, this junk is not getting a season 2. So that was the masterpiece, The King's Game. I don't know why I expected a happier ending from this anime. Once again, I would put Nobu in the wrong because even though he may have a good heart, wanting to save everyone, he gives everyone false hope that they can survive the game, when in reality, he kind of started the game because he holds the virus of the game inside of him. But anyways, despite the narrative being kind of hard to follow at times, this is a pretty good and disturbing anime in my opinion. It's an interesting concept with very crazy twists. And in the end, I was just left in my dark room thinking about, if this were real, what would I do? Lie to my classmates that the game could be stopped? Keep everyone at peace because ignorance is bliss? I don't know, I'm not trying to ponder and be some type of anime poet. But overall, I would probably give this anime at 8 out of 10, and I would definitely recommend all of you to go and watch it. But now, let's move on to the second anime, which is only a quick 35 minutes. Our second anime for today is titled Hell 2 Lives, and this might sound pretty pretentious to say, but this is probably my favorite anime out of the 3, even though it's the most underground, even though it has the worst voice acting and animation, even though it only has one review, and that one review is negative. This anime is a very thought-provoking story about the afterlife, and everyone needs to watch it. And best of all, it's on YouTube, so you have no excuse but to watch it. Alright, but before I get into the actual anime, I gotta address the elephant in the room. This isn't technically an anime since it was made in Korea, but I'll let it slide, because it's on my anime list, and it's just good, and I make the freaking rules around here. Get out of here. Another thing, this anime was really hard to find, but after a lot of digging, I finally found it, uploaded by this guy with the channel Rare Electronic Movies, and he uploaded the whole short film and subtitled the entire thing himself. So shout out to this dude, because without him, I would never seen this masterpiece. Anyways, Hell 2 Lives is a 40-minute film made up of 2 mini-stories, both following a similar premise. An angel appears to both of the characters, telling them the date of their death and whether they will be going to heaven or hell. Starting with the first story, it follows the final moments of this guy right here. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even have a name, cause I don't remember it, but this guy is told by the angel he will be going to the 4th layer of hell, and the pain he will experience there is 10 times the worst pain he has ever felt. Oh yeah, and he's dying in a couple hours at midnight. The man is obviously in disbelief and sad because he already feels like his life has amounted to nothing, and now he is about to die and suffer for all of eternity. The man then falls into deep thought, processing what will happen, but comes up with a plan. He will just run away from the demons trying to drag him to hell, because that'll obviously work. The man runs away in an attempt to extend his life and hopefully improve his rank in the afterlife, using his remaining life on Earth for good. After running far away, like 2 blocks away from his apartment, the man sees the boss from the office he works at, who has always treated him so badly. The man learns that his boss was also told he is going to die about 5 minutes before him. So both men just sit down in silence and in disbelief that they are living in their final moments. The man then checks to see what time it is, only for both of them to teleport back to his apartment just in time for the demons to pick them up. The boss is taken by the demons first, since he was scheduled to die at 11:50 p.m. And this scene is pretty intense, not gonna lie. They strip him naked, pin him to the ground with nails, and then freaking skin him alive. The worst parts are mostly censored on YouTube, but still the idea and screams are just disturbing. The man just watches in horror as he realizes what is happening to his boss will happen to him next. The demons then explain to him that trying to run away from your fate puts you to an even more painful layer of hell, so now he's really done for. Just when all hope seems lost, an angel appears to the man. Tell me, you little wimp, you want to run away? But if you run away and get caught again, your rank will go down even further, and you will go down to an even more painful hell. Do you still want to run away? Shoot, I mean, honestly, I would take the risk too. I can't even blame this dude that much. The man then blacks out and wakes up sometime later in a sewer system. Now the man is forced to live out the rest of his days down here, where he is never fully at peace. He has recurring nightmares of his boss being skinned alive, and the demons constantly appear in the sewers to try to take him. The man is even more motivated to get away, because if he gets caught, he will go to the most painful layer of hell. So for now, he's just cursed with running away from the demons and eating live rats to stay alive. And that's the end of the first short film. In only 10 minutes, this director was able to make an eerie, thought-provoking story that really stays with you. Even now, days after watching, I lay in my bed at night thinking about what would I do in this situation? Would I run away or accept my fate to go to the most painful layer of hell? What really put this hell in perspective for me was when the angel said the pain was 10 times worse than any pain the man has ever felt. And the man then remembers the time where he got hit by a car on his bike and was hospitalized for weeks. So you're telling me the pain he will experience is 10 times worse that? Yeah man, sounds pretty lame if you ask me. And that was the end of part 1 of the short film. Now part 2 of the short film goes a little bit deeper with its story. It opens with the same angel appearing to this girl named Jiok and telling her she has 5 days left to live, and she is currently rank 1 in the afterlife and destined for heaven. Jiok realizes she should be happy by this news because there's no pain in heaven, but she has convinced herself that people cannot have a purpose or reason where there is no pain. She's been told there is no purpose in heaven, so therefore her dying and going to heaven will make her cease to exist. Jiok looks back at the memories from her childhood to remind herself of happy times before she forgets everything. She has this pre-thought out view of what the afterlife is like with no other proof other than it just being her own interpretation. So her assuming it has no reason and it will make her erased from reality is low-key kinda dramatic. Anyways, Jiok quits her job at a school and tells her mom she's coming home to visit since she wants to spend her final moments with her mom. When she gets home, her mom starts talking to her about her future and how she needs to get married and all this stuff, but then Jiok drops this bombshell news that she's dying in 4 days. Her mom is sad, but at the same time she's happy for her daughter since she's going to heaven. Because in this world, going to heaven or hell is all about being a good person or not, and getting to heaven is something all people want to strive for. A little side note, this anime seems to get this concept of the afterlife from Buddhism or Hinduism with themes of karma and your actions determining your fate after death. But the part of heaven being a place of nothingness isn't really an interpretation from any religion, so I don't really know where Jiok gets that from. Later that night, Jiok can't sleep because she's dying in a few days, and she can't decide whether she should sleep or not because her time is just so precious. And then all these thoughts start passing through her mind. She starts having these thoughts of running away from her fate, which is the same thing the first man did. But for the time being, Jiok decides to brush these feelings off and accept her fate. Since, trying to run away and cheat death grants you a far worse fate. The next day, Jiok meets up with her boyfriend to break up with him and explain she's dying and all that. Her boyfriend tells her to run away with him, but she says she can't because she'll end up going to hell. But this thought of running away is still at the back of her mind. On the other hand, she is in a way very happy her boyfriend is so sad because his love for her even after her death will keep her legacy alive and she won't just fade into nothingness like she thinks will happen. That night, Jiok brings up the idea of running away to her mom, which she is instantly against. But despite her mom's feeling towards it, the thought still won't leave her mind. Fast forward to her final day on Earth. Jiok goes out to enjoy the earth one last time. She takes a nice walk through the city and feels the warm sun on her skin. When she returns home, she finds the police in her mom's apartment because her mom has committed suicide. Jiok's mom leaves one final note to her as well, which reads, "Mommy loves you so much. Please believe me about that. I wanted to leave it up to you whether you run away or not. But if I told you to run away, you wouldn't, out of concern for me. You don't know how much I've wanted to tell you this. What I'm saying is, What I'm saying is, run away. Her mom sacrifices herself all for her daughter, so nothing will hold her back from running away from death. Jiok instantly packs up all her things and rushes to her boyfriend's apartment. When she arrives, only a few minutes left before dying, she can't seem to find her boyfriend. She calls out to him with no answer. Then, she hears a noise coming from his room. Approaching the door, she opens it slightly and is shocked by what she sees. This dude is cheating on her already. He already found a new girl that fast. And all the boyfriend says is, "You're not dead yet?" To which she says, "I was gonna run away with you." And "you're not dead yet" has to be one of the craziest things you could ever say to a person when you get caught cheating. In disbelief, Jae-young walks over to the table to grab a pair of scissors and take a wild guess of what happens next. She does some little arts and crafts one last time. No, she freaking kills them all. Both the boyfriend and the other chick are dead, and there's blood everywhere. Jae-young laughs to herself, and then the angel appears and tells her this: "You were bound for heaven, but just before your scheduled time, your rank has been adjusted, and you are not fit for rank 1. Your new rank is rank 4, so you are bound for the 3rd ring of hell. And the agony of hell is 10 times as bad as the worst pain you have ever felt." And that's the end of the anime. One of the things I just now thought of after watching this again was her mother's death, because I believe it serves 2 purposes. One was to convince her daughter to run away, and the other was so that the mom would go to hell so she would be with her daughter in the afterlife. Since the fate for suicide and running away is the same, it's both hell. I'm not really sure what the message or deeper meaning of the story is. Maybe something like you can't escape your fate, similar to the first anime we talked about. But I also feel like it's trying to get across that we aren't in control, and there's no use in assuming, like Jae-young did. She assumed it would be a bad place and wasted her final moments and made her fate worse, all from assuming. But at the end of the day, we can't save ourselves, and we all need God to save us. This is a very deep story that could be interpreted in many ways, and I'd honestly give it a 9 out of 10. This is one of the most thought-provoking stories I've seen in a while, and anything having to do with the afterlife fascinates me. So just go watch it for yourself with the link below and tell me what you think about it. And now, it's time for our final anime for today. And this anime probably has the creepiest atmosphere by far. Just take a look. Now, our last anime for today is titled Aragne, Sign of Vermillion. Released in 2018 with only 10 reviews ever, 11 now including me. This was an anime made by Studio Zelko, which you have probably never heard of, since the only other anime they've made are this one and a sequel to it. But for the studio's first film, it ain't too bad, as long as you ignore the hot garbage animation. But the basic plot of this anime is a bug disease that has taken over Earth that turns people into these creatures that distort and morph their body into all these disgusting forms. At only an hour and 18 minutes, there's a pretty decent story packed into here. But the ending is pretty confusing. I'll get into that in a minute though. So our story follows this girl named Rin, who's a university student and moves to this new apartment. She found her apartment online, and this is what it was supposed to look like, but when she shows up, yeah, she got trolled. But instead of trying to get her money back, she just deals with it and goes to her little stinky room in the nasty rundown building. On the way in, she meets this guy named Sion, but he doesn't say anything to her because he's too focused on this beetle on the ground, and it has some nasty creature growing out of it. Rin goes inside her apartment building, and it appears to be empty with only her roaming the halls. On the way to her room, she spots a person around the corner, and it's some lady scratching at her arm, bleeding, repeating, "The bugs, the bugs, the bugs came inside." So already there's something evil or cursed up with these bugs. Or maybe she's just in a building with a bunch of tweakers, I don't know. Trust me though, the stuff with bugs gets a whole lot worse, so just hang tight. Inside her apartment, Rin takes her pills to calm herself down, and these are supposed to suppress her hallucinations. A common thing with this girl is that whenever something weird happens, she just takes these pills and ignores reality around her. After school the next day, she goes to a park and then spots some girl dancing all around. This girl is named Nashua, and she introduces herself to Rin, and they seem to kinda get along, until Nashua gets way too creepy and says this. Won't your family be worried you're out this late? Family? What's a father? No, I mean, some scary stuff's been happening lately around here, you know? Oh, you mean the Savior. The Savior? That's what they call him online. They say he purifies lost souls. Purifies souls? People are dead. There's a secret circle that only the chosen can join. You see, they keep back curses, the bad things you can't see. Kinda cool, isn't it? She basically says there's this secret group of people that stops curses, but one of them turned mad and is now a killer. Rin decides to leave this freak and head back to her apartment though. On the way back, she spots this woman being wheeled out of her apartment complex on a stretcher. This woman seems to be dead, and then her arm blows up and this maggot thing runs out. Everyone besides Rin is too nonchalant about this, and they all just head back to the hospital, leaving Rin alone with the maggot bug crawling all around. Then the anime cuts to one of the crime scenes from the killer who's been out and about. The victim is lying in a river with her neck all bent up, and this has been a common look all the victims have. Back at school the next day, Rin goes to the library to research what she saw last night when she meets Tokyo. He asks if she is able to see the bugs too, which proves that being able to see these bugs is some type of terrible power and not just hallucinations. So turns out these bugs are some type of divine beings that can judge souls. So frick, Rin is cooked, she's living in an apartment infested with god bugs, and then Tokyo tells her those who are able to see the bugs die soon after. This obviously freaks her out and she runs back home. While walking down her hallway to her apartment, the killer from earlier appears, and she has to run from him. I'm no expert, but I think this dude is trying to kill her. This chase scene is actually really intense and pretty spooky, but we're only 30 minutes into this movie, so obviously Rin survives and runs into this random apartment room that seems to be abandoned. She walks in the bathroom, but dang it, the killer's there and he gets her. But surprisingly, she wakes up later unharmed, and it's hard to tell if the event really happened or was just another one of her delusions. Rin then goes back home and begins to look more into the killer she met last night. All the victims have had this bent neck like we saw earlier, but the bodies turn out to match the description of a disease from 40 years ago. Rin digs up some old newspapers to figure out more about this disease and finds this out.
A disease strikes Shikinuma's industrial area that causes a mutation of the victim's cervical membrane. Red moths were also seen near the waste disposal facilities. Interviews revealed that many suffering of the tilting sickness had made a contract with the red moths. The factory owners denied any connection, and no proof was ever found linking the disease to the waste disposal facilities.
Rin then goes out to find new information and sees the girl Nashua from earlier still dancing around like an idiot. But this girl seems different from usual. Rin says she seems to be like a puppet by the way her face looks, and then she realizes her neck is tilting too. Brick! She has the bug tilt disease too. Rin then starts following Nashua to try to be a hero, which is such a dumb move. And she follows Nashua all the way to inside her apartment building, and inside is where Rin catches up to Nashua. But then she begins to morph and turn into the killer herself. Bruh, at this point, I would just move out of this hellhole. Even a tent under a bridge would be better than this. Anyways, as Rin is about to be killed, this random blonde guy shows up to stop the killer. Then he dies. Rin then wakes up on a pile of dead bodies at the bottom of her disgusting apartment building, and this scene is pretty gnarly, and really builds on the disgusting, creepy atmosphere of this anime. To escape this pit, Rin has to make a tower with the dead bodies to climb out, which is pretty creative, not gonna lie. After getting out of the pit, she finds an old film that explains more about this weird tilting neck disease. Then, one of the dead bodies from Rin's body pile awakens and turns into this creature, but turns out the black ball in her neck saves her and burns that freak to ash. We are now at the last 10 minutes of this anime, and this is where it gets really weird and hard to explain, but I'll try my best. Rin finds herself at the bottom of the drain system, where she finds the dead body of Tokyo, who first explained the bug disease to her. Then, a woman who lives in the same hall as Rin appears behind her and stabs her. Then we cut to a scene from earlier in the movie, where this woman was pushing a baby cart down the hall, but this time, instead of a baby, it's Rin's body, or her head, or something. I'm not really sure. Something dead though. Then Rin wakes up tied down to a chair, and then this giant ball machine activates behind her and draws all the energy from the city and starts sending it into her. The bug tilt disease starts to infect Rin, with bugs crawling all under her skin. This climaxes when, alright, I gotta say this with a straight face, her brain turns into a spider and crawls out of her head. Yeah, this anime goes really off the rails at the end. Rin then sees a vision of the world where bugs have taken over, and then the machine explodes, but something strange happens. Time begins rewinding and goes back to right before Rin got stabbed. Rin then starts repeating this phrase to the woman who tries to stab her. I hurt people. I hurt people. people. And then finally she says to the woman, "You hurt people." And she uses her black ball power to kill the black-haired lady and take all the skin off her bones. Then Ren grows some butterfly wings and wakes up in a hospital. So all seems to be well, but when Ren looks out the window, she sees the world has been taken over by bugs. Then the anime ends. I was pretty confused when this anime ended, to say the least, and it feels like this anime couldn't decide what route it wanted to take. It seemed like the villain was the bug disease, and then there was a killer, and then there was this random black-haired lady at the end, so I'm not really sure who the main antagonist was. It's really hard to follow the story because a good portion of the movie is just delusions in Ren's mind, but now I'm going to explain my theory on it all. So the bug disease is likely an experiment gone wrong, as we see in the old tape. The government was trying to create a superhuman, but instead they created a crazy bug person. I believe Ren was a test subject in this experiment, and everything that happens in the movie happens while she is in a coma after the experiment. When she finally wakes up, she realizes the world is in ruin and the experiment she was part of ruined humanity. And according to that theory, it makes me like the ending a whole lot more. Personally, I really enjoyed this movie. It had a spooky and grotesque atmosphere that is really hard to find in anime. And at just over an hour long, I say check it out to get the full picture for yourself. Being the 11th review on this anime, I'm going to rate it a 7 out of 10. Yes, the animation isn't great and it looks like Berserk 2016, but the story and voice acting are both very solid, so all of you go and watch this anime now, and who knows, maybe I'll watch this movie's sequel and do a video on it. And now we've made it to the end. Those were 3 disturbing anime you've never heard of. One anime shows the consequences of false hope, another shows the result of trying to change your fate, and the last one shows what happens if you move into a bug-infested hotel. That's the worst one. If by some chance you have heard of one of these anime today, then write me a comment about another obscure anime only you know about, and maybe I'll put it in my next video. But that's it for today. If you like this series and want to see more, then like the video and comment, because this was a really fun video to make. But I think that's enough spookiness for today. See you in the next one. I love you guys.